My name is Patrick. Recently I retired after 26 years as a police officer and sold everything I owned. Now it's time for something different. A journey of healing and inspiration. I'm setting out to ride my motorcycle around the world, searching for beauty, connection, and the freedom of the open road. This is my life now. This is Adventures Without Borders. Well, welcome to Hopkins. Can't think of the name of the place I'm staying at, so I will have to pull over. Seems to me it was at the far north end of town, but I'll figure it out. I mean, it was on the beach, so it's gotta be somewhere here. Right here. That was pretty darn close. Ooh, that's deep sand. I'll figure out my parking in a bit. So this is my current location here in Hopkins, Belize. So Hopkins is obviously on the coast of the Caribbean Sea. It's a town of only about, I think, 1,600 people. It's got its whole unique vibe and culture here. The local culture, which is a mixture of indigenous and Afro-Caribbean culture and people, a mixture of people, is called Garifuna. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Or Garaf. I think it's Garifuna. It's Garifuna. So that comes with its own language, food, culture, the whole bit. So going back in time, it was a mixture of people who had initially been brought in through the slave trade from Africa to some of the Caribbean islands, who mixed with some of the indigenous people on those islands and eventually created its whole own culture and language. If you're from Canada, like I would say a similar phenomenon are the Métis people who, really came to have a distinct language and culture of their own over time. So I'm here for 2 full days, and then this is my first full day. I'm here tomorrow, and then I leave on Thursday. And I'll be heading to the capital, Belmopan, for a couple of days, and then on to my last stop in San Ignacio, which is the last place I'll be before I cross into Guatemala. So I took some time today to plan so that I can tell some people down the line when I'll be arriving. For example, I'm staying with a friend in Costa Rica, so I needed to know when I'm going to roughly arrive there. So I spent some time in my room just planning out routes. ChatGPT, really helpful for that sort of thing. Belize is actually a really interesting country historically. So this, of course, was part of a whole Mayan empire, which began like more than 1,000 years BC, and then really started to decline around 900, 1000 AD, and then finally more or less came to an end with the arrival of the Spanish in the 1500s. But there were some really big cities that were part of the Mayan Empire that would now be in modern day Belize. So Belize was initially taken over by the Spanish. The British had some interest in it for mostly logging purposes on the coast, and the Spanish had become vulnerable to pirate attacks, and the pirates, who were known as buccaneers, which is where that term comes from, were mostly of British descent. And in exchange for British help in fending off the pirates, the Spanish allowed the Brits to occupy some of the coastal regions in order to, do some logging and whatever else. And those, although not initially officially a colony, eventually transformed themselves into a colony. There were some wars between the British and the Spaniards, and in the end, the British took over the entire territory, which was then called British Honduras, and eventually became Belize. So there's still sort of an underlying dispute between Belize and Guatemala about some border issues, but it's really more territorial. So the Guatemalans do believe that they own all or at least most of Belize. And so that's before some international courts right now. But there's this underlying tension between the two countries. So Belizeans, mainly, the official language here is English. So just about everybody speaks English. Most people speak Creole, though, in common everyday life. So Creole is a mix of English, some of the old indigenous languages, some Spanish thrown in there for good measure. And I think even the Creole can vary from region to region. So it's super interesting when you listen to people talk. Honestly, to me, not being very accustomed to the accent here, it all kind of sounds like a Jamaican accent in terms of cadence and pronunciation. So it's really cool. For example, any word ending in ER just seems to end in A in the local accent and dialect. Having said that, it's super easy to communicate, especially compared to a Spanish-speaking country, although I was doing okay by the end of my time in Mexico. And in another few days, I'll be back into it in Guatemala. Now, for my last experience in Guatemala, I actually found their accent to be somewhat easier to understand than the Mexican one. Maybe that's just maybe that's just the regions I was in. but it seemed like a bit of a slower cadence, which made it easier for me to follow. Anyway, so I'm really just chilling here. Like I said, did some planning today. I want to see if I can edit another episode for YouTube. I'm doing good. I don't want to be caught up at any point, obviously. I always need a bit of a buffer, but I like to be a little bit closer to real time than I am right now. And other than that, I'm just going to live on, it's not an island, but I'm going to call it island time, Belize time right now. And the other thing, moving forward in my trip here, and I mentioned this before, but distances are going to start taking a lot more time, you know, where in Mexico and other parts of North America, I've been accustomed to 100 kilometers taking more or less an hour. Now it might take 2. And as I was planning ahead through Central America, I planned all the way to Panama actually, and it doesn't mean any of that's written in stone, but it gives me a better idea. And it's pretty common to have 100 kilometers take 2 hours. So I got to think differently about all this and just go with the flow, because there's not much I can do. And again, I had ChatGPT help me out with picking border crossings and telling me how the border crossings work. They all kind of work the same, to be honest. It's just going to be where buildings are and whatnot. So they all require you to stamp out of the old country, cancel your temporary import permit for the motorbike, stamp it in the new country, get a new temporary import permit, get insurance, and then you go. So I think I can count on a couple hours, give or take, for each border crossing moving forward. The one for Belize, I think, took me about that, an hour and a half, 2 hours. And it's mainly just waiting around because the processes are a little bit slower. So I'm going to go have supper pretty soon here. Apparently there's a place just down the road that has a drumming concert, show, whatever, tonight. So I'm gonna go hang out there and come back here. I've got a little bungalow, a little cabin, and this is actually a private beach that belongs to those cabins. I'm the only guest. I honestly don't think there are a lot of people right here right now that aren't local. I saw a couple last night while I was having supper. Not 100% sure where they were from. A couple of them sounded British. One sounded very American. One had a very neutral accent, possibly Canadian. But it's definitely low season here. But I was at a hotel called the Coconut something. I took a few pictures. I'll try to share them in the video here. And like, that was a beautiful hotel, swimming pool right on the beach. But they told me they were actually closing as of tomorrow for a while, for this, I guess, the rainy season. So it seems to rain every day. I've been fairly lucky right now with my travels, but it's definitely that time of year around here. So I think I can expect to get wet at some point. As long as it doesn't hamper my travel too much, I'm cool with that. All right, I'll do some more relaxing here, and I'll check in with you later. All right, let's. Just waking up. Well, I'm not just waking up. It's Thursday morning, and I am leaving Hopkins, Belize. This is where I was staying. There's a bunch of little cabins and a friendly dog. So I'm gonna go grab some breakfast here at the other end of town. Or it's a village. It's a place I've been eating at. This will be my second breakfast, fourth meal there. It's actually owned by a German dude. I don't know if it's his wife or whatever, but there's a Russian lady there who seems to be a partner in the business. And takes him a while to warm up to you, but once he does, he's a super friendly guy. and their food is awesome. It rained this morning around 5, like I have never heard it rain before in my life. For about, I'm gonna say half an hour, 45 minutes, and then it was done. And when I woke up, the sky was clear. Yeah, it was so loud, and it's a tin roof, so you can imagine that it was quite noisy. So I was just chatting with the owner of the place I was staying today, Arlene, and yeah, apparently if you go like south of town, which I don't think I'm gonna do, but there are some fairly big resorts. She describes them as big hotels, so I don't know what that means in comparison, but yeah, so I imagine that it's possible to just stay here and kind of relax. I don't know if they're all inclusive type places, although staying in your own little accommodation is pretty relaxing. It's the only thing, you have to go out and look for food. But once you figure that out, it's pretty nice. So I was on the village's Facebook page, and yeah, they got all sorts of programs. They got a cleanup program for the sargassum on the beach, which they do by hands. Here it is, Piers by hand. Here's Piers Place. Oh, and the fresh fruit is coming in. Oksana! Well, I just finished breakfast and a nice, lovely conversation with Pierre and Oksana, who run Pierre's Place restaurant here in Hopkins. They're an interesting couple. They met here, is what I gather. But, yeah, amazing. She came from Moscow to Hopkins, and I always find those stories so interesting. And good food, like it's good portions, good quality. So I'm just heading south here, which isn't really the direction that I'm going in today, but I'm curious about all the resorts that people are talking about, so I'm gonna go check those out, see if I can find where that is. It says Hotel Zone, Hopkins Village Road Hotel Zone, so that makes sense. So this is what people are talking about. They're sort of condo style resorts.
imagine much more expensive than where I was staying. Wow. So I've hit this dirt road here. Which is in actually remarkably good shape considering the rain. It shows a turn off in about 500 meters, so I'll see. If it's not pavement, I might just go back. I'm not really interested in doing any dirt roading today. Alright, well, all of a sudden this has turned into more of a dirt road than I was anticipating, but that's okay. I don't think it's for very long. Wonder how that golf cart I saw got through here, although it had the big sort of off-road wheels. It's maybe a better track over here. I mean, it is possible that the nice stretch of road I was on earlier, that it didn't rain there last night. Well, I was kind of expecting this to be paved, but well, I seem to be back on the pavement for now. Kind of pavement. It's pretty beat up. Oh, see, short-lived. Back to gravel. All right, I'm back on the highway, or the main highway, I think. Actually a really nice road, look at that. So I'm looking at 198, not 100, 98 kilometers to Belmopan today. About an hour and a half from here, I'm thinking. Yeah. And it's nice, there's a breeze, it's not too hot. It'll be a pretty decent day. Yeah, this part of the country is actually really nice. It's lush and green. This is sort of what I picture Guatemala to be like, which makes complete sense because I'm getting closer to Guatemala. Yeah, I like it. Coffee stop ahead. Just arriving in Belmopan. Belmopan? That's how I've been saying it anyway. Just gonna pull in and have a look at my Google Maps to see exactly where I need to go. So it's still another 5 kilometers from here, 10 minutes. Let's have a look around in the meantime. So I think I was mentioning on a previous segment that Belmopan is the capital for Belize, but originally the capital was Belize City until, from memory, I think it was 1961 when a large storm pretty much destroyed Belize City, and they decided to move the capital inland here. So this city was built from scratch as a planned city to be the capital. And the population's about 16,000. And I was trying to remember, that makes it either the second or the third biggest city, but I know there was a very small difference between second and third. And I think the other one was San Ignacio. So I'm staying at a little Airbnb, which is actually a series of tiny homes, as they describe themselves. Been in touch with another traveler, actually there's two of them, they're a couple. and I think they're from France, but they had been living in Canada, or at least she had, and they're traveling the Pan American, and I think they're heading north. I honestly don't know tons about them, but they do have a YouTube channel that I briefly checked out the other day. So anyway, they're supposed to be at this tiny homes until tomorrow, and so we had exchanged a couple of quick texts to say that, well, maybe we can meet up, have a chat or whatever, which is always fun. So we'll see if that works out. I'm in Belmopan, which is the capital of Belize. It's actually just a really small town of about 16,000. And as of this morning, I'm the only guest at this Airbnb, which features 6 tiny houses and like a beautiful outdoor dining area that's covered. So when I got here last night, there was a couple, so a girl named Leah from France and her husband Quentin from Belgium, and I will link to her YouTube page down below. So they had been staying here for the week. So what they're doing is they're traveling, and then Monday to Thursday they work a job online, which is super cool, and that's how they fund their travel. Anyway, so they made me dinner last night. So because I don't have any cooking skills, I went out and grabbed a bottle of wine to have with dinner. So that was my contribution. I also helped to boil some eggs for a salad. Yeah, so this is it's kind of a neat place. There's no AC in the rooms though, so that's there are some fans, and if you keep the doors open, you get a nice breeze going. At night was really nice, and then it rained last night while we were actually having supper just under here, and that really cooled things down, so sleeping was pretty good. I want to have a little nap later on in one of these hammocks back here. They're dry now. So I gotta head into town. You get some copies made. So when you cross all these borders here in Central and South America, they all require copies of your passport and the registration for the bike and such. So I do have copies, but I realized I didn't make a copy of the back of the registration. So there's a copy place in town here that I saw. So I'm going to see if I can't get a few copies made of that, and then I'm going to head grab some lunch at one of the restaurants. And right now I just got to open this gate. Leave you there for now. Okay, so I'm going to run those errands, and I'll be back shortly. Hey, good morning everybody. It's Saturday morning. I'm just prepping to leave Belmopan. I'm just packing my bike. Woke up to some pretty good rain this morning, so I delayed my departure. Plus, I think I'm only going an hour away to San Ignacio. So anyway, you can see bike got a little bit wet this morning. I don't know if you can make that out. So I had a pretty productive day yesterday, which was sort of my day off here. I went into town, had some extra photocopying to do for border crossings. So I had, before I left home, photocopied like my passport, registration, driver's license, in multiple copies, because they always ask for them at the borders, and if you don't have them, then you gotta run to some place next door and get them done, and it's just a pain. Then I was reading something, and they mentioned that it's a good idea to have the back of your
registration copied as well, and I did do both sides of my license, but not my registration, so I went that. Here's the only other person. Hi, sweetie. Yeah. I don't think she's showing up. There she is. So yeah, that's the only other resident here right now at the tiny homes in Belmopan. So, I don't know, starting to clear up behind me here. The sky is starting to clear up behind me, so probably okay. I'm gonna go into town more here and find some breakfast. I also have to find an ATM. I got a few days left, but there's some ruins I want to visit here in the next day, so I'm going to need a little bit of extra cash. And I do want to hold on to my US cash for now, so I'm going to see if I can find an ATM. Yes, I hear you. See if I can find an ATM and just withdraw a little bit of money. All right, let's do the last checks in my tiny home, and then I'll be hitting the road. Okay, here we go.
You have a little step and go up, and then he goes in one of those rooms, disappear, and that's when the man will put some smoke, then he's